Joan Chen is on time. Sean Wang is a little bit stuck in traffic, so we're just gonna have him jump on stage with us when he gets here. And that's good, because then we can just talk about Sean before he gets here, right?
But let's gossip before he gets here, yeah. He's probably gonna be here in like 3 minutes, so.
It won't be too long. So, okay, Joan, you are an actor and also an executive producer on Dìdi. It's such a beautiful film, it's such a beautiful performance that you give opposite Isaac Wang. I'd love to hear your perspective on, why you decided to do Dìdi. You've had such a long and illustrious career. At 19, you won the equivalent of the Chinese Oscar for Best Actress. You came to Hollywood, had a Hollywood career. You became a director in your own right as well. There's so many kinds of projects that you've done. What was it about Dìdi that spoke to you?
So I first got the script with Sean's letter as well as Sean's lookbook, and it was really special. The letter was really very emotional about his relationship with his mother and his vision for the film, obviously. But the script was really what sold to me. I mean, that's the most important thing when you start anything, it's the script. His letter was really strange. I showed it to him. He said, "Oh, why did I start with that sentence?" He says, "I am a 29-year-old filmmaker." It's like, why did I say he is very young and very talented. When I read the script, I really felt such a deep sympathy for the mother, and I just felt like, wow, though Sean's mom and me, we live very different lives, but that motherhood was depicted in a way I'm like, okay, this is me, this is my story. I am an immigrant mother who brought up 2 American kids, and I've not seen many, Asian mothers like that on screen. It's fresh to me, mostly popular imagination is the tiger mom, it's the strict matriarch, and many Asian moms that I know are like myself or like Sean, and that funny and poignant, and just this mother is artistic. That's also different. Artistic and unsure of herself, very unsure, wanting to be the best mother, but not knowing if she's doing the right thing or not. And every time if the kid is not feeling happy, you blame yourself. You feel like, oh, I did something wrong again. And that's how I always felt with my children. I blame myself a great deal. So it moved me that in the end, the son, Chris, seemed to finally see his mom. And it's important that we just see each other. And for the first time, he sees his mom in the final shot, and that moves me. And throughout the shoot, Audrey, my younger daughter, was on set, was watching me. So all this, that talk that I had in my bedroom with Isaac was like a conversation I should have had a long time ago with my own children. We have weathered so many storms during their adolescence, but we've never approached it or said anything or never resolved it in any way. And during the shooting of this film, Audrey was there, and she was in front of the monitor, and I just felt like I was speaking to my daughter. It's a long delayed conversation with her. And this film, such a gift, I mean, brought me and my daughter together. And there's so much unsaid, or things that should not have been said was uttered. All these misunderstandings sort of were healed during the process of her being on the set, being a PA, and I was also working on the set. So very redemptive, cathartic.
It's amazing to hear you had such a personal experience, you know, a connection to the story, and with your daughter on set as well. And it's interesting that you say that you connected with this character Chungsing from the moment you read the script, because we experienced this story not through her perspective, but through Chris's perspective. Would you share a little bit more about what was in Sean's letter that he wrote to you that was compelling to you, that actually connected with you?
I don't have my cell phone here. I could have just, when he's not here, I could have just read it out to you. Yeah, it is that, you know, he is actually pretty mature in that he realized what his mother has done for him. Nowadays, I think I never expected my children to like care about my career or think about anything that's unrelated to them. A mother is just a mother. That's their mother. Sean seemed to, at 29, actually before that, he was writing the Chinese thing about he and she. Oh my God. You know, because in Chinese it's just ta for everything, and so I'm like, I confuse people by calling Sean she, or you know. Sean, I think he'll tell you, he's worked on the script for many years. And so the process of writing was the process of him discovering that, oh my God, you know, this is not just a coming of age story for the boy, it is also his love letter to his mom. Here comes Sean.
Oh yeah, right.
They want to know what you said in your letter to me.
I said, hello, Joan Chen. I am Sean Wang. I'm a 28-year-old filmmaker. I was 28 at the time. I don't know why I wrote that in the letter. That's not like a selling point. If anything, if I was her, I would have dropped the letter right there. I said, I'm working on my first feature film, and I would love for you to play Chungsing. And I wrote a long paragraph, 2 paragraphs, and I said, we should do this together. And then we did. Also, everyone, I hope you guys liked the movie.
Sean, thanks for
Hi, Jen.
running on stage. Hi, we're so glad to have both of you here because, Sean, you have had quite a 2024 year, and to come back around with Dìdi after its initial release is a really cool thing to be able to do. Just to recap a little bit, the year that you've had. You folks premiered Dìdi at Sundance at the start of the year, where you won the Audience Award and the Special Jury Award. You were acquired by Focus Features. Then you took your grandmothers to the Oscars with your short documentary, Nai Nai and Waipo, where you were nominated for an Oscar for Best Doc Short. We saw the release of Dìdi, released earlier, to great critical acclaim, and now we get to celebrate it again.
Did you guys know that was my grandma in the movie, by the way?
Yeah.
Okay. Who didn't know? That was
Guess
my real
what?
grandma.
That was his grandma.
She's good, right?
Let's talk about that because I think that's one of the great behind the scenes stories of how this really special film came together. You make your short doc, 99 White Boat, in which you can see your grandmother, both of your grandmothers, and they're so bursting with personality and charisma and so special. And then you filmed this a couple years later. What was the process that led you to cast your own grandmother who hadn't acted in this way before? And Joan, when you first met her, what did you see in her as a performer that made you think, yeah, we got this?
Actually, during our first conversation, we mentioned, like I was asking, right? I said, oh, you know who's gonna play my mother-in-law? And Sean named a quite famous Taiwanese actress whom I adore, and I said, oh, great, you know, I love her. And then sometime later, when did you decide?
I think it was, we had that meeting and, should we just tell her? She loves the movie, so it's okay. It was this Taiwanese actress, Gui, and I met with Joan and she's like, oh, who's playing Nai Nai? And I was like, oh, you know, I'm speaking with this actress who I think you've worked with before, you know, Gui. And Joan goes, oh, I love her. I've worked with her, she's incredible. I'm like, yeah, it's probably either gonna be her or my grandma. And Joan goes, oh. And then, but I think from the very beginning, after we shot 99 White Pole, which was the name of the short, it was about my two grandmothers, and one of them was just too old to even consider, but the other one, who we ended up casting, was sort of, one, the right age for the role, and I think
was young, a young 86.
Yeah, a young, sprightly 86, but I think when we did the short, I think the thing that I realized was that both of them have that sort of thing that, you know, that great actresses have, which is their eyes. Like, they have these sort of like eyes that were just like so soulful when you like captured it in the right context. And White Bull is all like, the character of Nai Nai is very like, she has to be charming and lovable, but ultimately like she's kind of an antagonistic force in the family. But ultimately, like, we wanted the audience to like root for her and still love her and like know that all the things that she's saying is coming from a place of love. And we were like, oh, White Bull would like kind of be amazing for this. If it would be a swing, and if it was a miss, it would be like, wow, Sean cast his grandma and like ruined the movie. Or it would be like, wow, that's such a unique thing that only this movie could do. And that was always the thing we were looking for, like, what is the thing that only we can do with this movie? And so it's kind of a risk, but even with like our financiers and Joan, it was sort of like, when I would tell them that, they would kind of be like, oh, okay, interesting. But then they would see the short, and they'd be like, oh, we see what you're trying to do. Like, that would be incredible. So we like, all our financiers were supportive of the idea, but it was very much kind of a risk. And then even when I was starting to meet with Gui, my grandma was like, oh, you should definitely cast her. She's like, my grandma loves her. And she was like, yeah, I'm here if you need me, but like, cast her. And then, I mean, long story less long, we ended up casting my grandma because it was that thing of like, yeah, like, if this works, I think it would bring this sort of like really grassroots independent charm to the movie that if it works, it would just like, no other movie could do this. Yeah, it would be magic. And that was kind of the ethos I had throughout the movie, which was just like, look, like, if we make the movie that goes by the formula of this type of movie, like, it's gonna be a 3-star movie, and I'm a nobody filmmaker, and like, less people, I don't think anyone's, like, making the lukewarm version of this movie isn't gonna get, like, we're not gonna find an audience that way. I think we just need to like, make the most unique choices we possibly can, go street cast, everything. Obviously, like, we're so lucky that Joan, you know, brought her magic to the movie, but it was trying to create this sort of charm that was like so unique to our movie, and try to make the movie that would like be very unique and special, as opposed to the movie that we've seen like a lot of times with, you know, like Famous Kids or something.
It's actually one of the challenges, you know, when you see real people act, when they are at their best, they're just relaxed, and if they're themselves, it's hard to compete, really difficult. I mean, then you have to be as natural, lived in, you know, you don't want to stand out to be the movie star, you know? And so that's an extra challenge, actually, you know, for me, the professional in it, yeah.
I think she'd be great.
Well, your scenes with Sean's grandmother are so good too.
She was good. I mean, Sean will tell you, she's so hardworking. She's like prepared.
Sure, like her script was so lined and everything. But the thing, actually, this is funny. I realized this recently. because she doesn't know English very well or at all, and so she watches the movie and she's like, I don't really know what this movie's about. But I know my scenes. She's like, yeah, it's like about a 13-year-old boy, right? And even my mom speaks a little bit of English, but like she's not fluent, and she's seen the movie 8 times. And then she saw the movie in Taiwan, you know, last month when we were there for Sundance Asia. And there were Chinese subtitles on the English. And she was like, for the first time I understand the rest of your movie, and like there's a lot of sex jokes. I was like, yeah, Mom.
You know, Sean, I just found out yesterday, it's rated R. I mean, I can't believe it. Why is it rated R? You know, a friend of mine was like, oh, you know, we really want to see what my kids, I just found out it's rated R. I said, no, this is a mistake, and I just found out. It's crazy.
Rated R for an F word or two.
That's how kids
10,
talk.
or 10.
There's something that Joan sort of mentioned before you came on, Sean, which is that you had been working on this for a while before you reached out with the script and all that. And I've heard you talk about this a little bit. Being at the age of 26 or so, and the sort of seeds of ideas that went into Dìdi coming together for you. What was it about life at that point in time? What was it about reflecting on your relationship with your own parents that fed into Dìdi?
You know, I'm not sure how much Joan shared or how much she gossiped about me, but it was that sort of thing where the seeds of this idea were very much, you know, I started writing this when I was like 22 or 23, and it was a very simple seed, which was, what if you took a movie like Stand By Me, which I think explores boyhood in the way that we hope to explore boyhood, which was without pandering to kids, to try to treat the emotions of kids with as much sort of emotional maturity as I think adult emotions, but set in a place that I know and how to star kids who looked like the kids in this movie. And it was very much that. It was kind of like Stand By Me, Superbad coded for the first few drafts, where there was like no parents, very much like this suburban adolescent wasteland. And I think as I got older in my 20s, I felt the thing that I think some filmmakers say, of like the movie's telling you what it wants to be. And I just felt this desire of like, well, I want to write about my family. Specifically, I want to write about the relationship I have with my mom, or this kid has with his mom, which was very much inspired by my own relationship with my mom. And for a little bit of time, I kind of, I think like said no to that urge, because I was like, I had made a couple of shorts that were about motherhood and my mom, and I was like, I don't know, I don't want to do that again. But once I kind of jumped down that well, it just like the movie felt alive for the first time. And then I think, you know, my parents immigrated to America when they were 26 years old. And I think I turned 26 in the making of this movie and writing it. And I think I was starting to go down that rabbit hole, but then it kind of made me look at my life and my parents in like a new light, and it made me look at the character of the mom in the movie in a new light, because then I was like, oh, like it just made me think about all the things I think a lot of people start thinking about as they grow older, which is like, who was my mom before she was my mom? Like, what was the life that she lived? What was her experience? Like, could I imagine myself in her shoes being 26 years old, which was when I was 26, like moving to a completely new country with knowing nobody, not speaking the language, and then having 2 kids in this country that she has, you know, no real footing in. And I think that empathy exercise, in a way, was kind of what I tried to do with this movie, and it was the thing I had to do in my real life as well. So in that way, like the movie and my actual life kind of had like this mirror experience. But yeah, I think, I don't know, it was very much like a growth of or artist and human at the same time. It sounds pretentious, but you know.
And you had interviews that you had done with your mother, right, that you shared with Joan. How did those help inform, your approach to this character?
Just to have a better understanding of what Sean wanted to say, about his upbringing, about his relationship with his mom, and how Sean's mom was speaking, talking about her life. We're of different personalities, but I liked her gentleness. She had more gentleness than I did, and more patience. So that helped me, to be sort of a better mother. I think she's a better mother than I am. Mom.
She's
Great mother.
She's so patient. Like there's an ocean roiling beneath the surface every single scene that we can see in her face that her kids maybe can't see, and Chris certainly doesn't see until maybe the end, right? The Ang Lee reference, that Chris was going to grow up to be her own Ang Lee, was that always in the script?
I think so. Yeah, I mean, once I like that first draft, I was like, I'm gonna incorporate a little bit more of that. I think so. Yeah.
Oh, your mom is a big Annie fan.
Yeah, my mom loves Annie. My parents had 3 unopened copies of Brokeback Mountain just in the house. And I remember like, why do we have movies? And I remember I was flipping through like old family albums one time, and there were just 3 close-up photos of Ang Lee, like. And I was like, what is this? I asked my mom, she was like, oh, that was at the premiere of, I forgot which movie, maybe it was Crouching Tiger. And I was like, did you meet him? She was like, no, I just ran up to him and go, ch-ch-ch. I was like, okay, Mom.
I mean, they say that a first feature is often the most personal, and I think there's, for you, Sean, to see this as, years from now, to look back on this as your first feature will be really interesting. I wonder if you can talk a little bit about the artistic influences that you count among the artists, the inspirations, even the sort of cinematic homages that you include in this. I'm thinking of, for example, and you've spoken about this, homages to the film Where the Wild Things Are by Spike Jonze. And I'm also thinking about the fact that Chris is trying to be a filmer for skate videos, which is such an interesting entryway into cinema for so many filmmakers of this generation. But sort of what are some of the references, the homages, the influences that you bring into Dìdi?
Yeah, I mean, there are truly so many, from all different varied places in my life. I mean, obviously, I think I was deliberately trying to look back at that time in my life, so thinking about like what I was ingesting during that time and what Chris would have been ingesting, which was like Jackass, skate videos, Superbad, these sort of that, a lot of like that YouTube culture of that time too, these sort of like YouTube, before vlogging was a thing, so like, I mean, it's in the movie Just Getting Filmed, like Kev Jumba, this sort of like internet era culture, like college humor, like prank wars, that kind of stuff, and like not being shy to lean into that kind of stuff, because I think a lot of filmmakers would be like, oh, that's internet stuff. But I think we're like, we should take all of those influences that are very much like generational influences, especially for this movie that's trying to be a time capsule of that period, but then marry it with a lot of the things that I started kind of consuming and influencing me as a filmmaker. Like, the opening montage is really like Eat, Drink, Man, Woman, and there's a lot of Ang Lee in these movies, and a lot of like Taiwanese cinema, like Yi and Edward Yang, but then also married with like, my experience working at Google, which was all the sort of like screen stuff, and so it really feels like all of my influences for the last 13 years are in this movie in some way, shape, or form, and especially Spike, I mean, from Jackass to Where the Wild Things Are to her, there's like, he's the reason I became a filmmaker, like truly just like seeing his work and being like, oh, he's a skater, but he's a director. And I was like, oh, for the first time I felt like, oh, maybe I can be a director. So like, there's a lot of homage to him in this movie as well, but yeah, the influences are sort of all across the board.
And I don't know if any eagle-eyed folks out there noticed the credit for the dead squirrel voice. How did... It's Spike Jones. There's another figure that I kind of thought about. I mean, I don't know how many people out there are well-versed in skate video culture. The name Jerry Sue, Bag of Suck, is also a reference in here. I would argue a gateway cinematic reference as well. In the
a lot of research, Jen.
I've had a whole year to live with this movie. I love it. It's great. There's so many different parts that are so interesting in it. But he's so interesting to even have like a passing nod to, right? Why is that something that is sort of interesting for you to have in there for people to maybe pick up on, maybe not?
Yeah, well, I mean, who in here does know skate videos? One person? Cool.
This is for you. This question's for you.
I mean, like, I really feel like my favorite movies, I just get a sense that the filmmaker has, knows the world inside and out. And so because this movie was, like, such a love letter to that time in my life, I really felt this permission to kind of be, like, shameless in kind of giving little nods to all the people that shaped me, especially during that time. And Jerry Sue, who's a skater, who was he was my favorite pro skater during that time and has been one of my favorite skaters since. But, you know, like, I think that the two subcultures that the movie is interfacing with that really inspired me are like skate culture and this sort of like Warped Tour, emo, pop punk, like music culture. And both of those subcultures are like, you know, pretty white, you know, and especially like the music scene, like it was like all these like 5-person white boy bands, and skating too was like, it was a very diverse, you know, skate scene, but like mainstream skating was like, again, like very white. And then Jerry was this person in my life and my friend's life who was from the Bay Area. He was this Taiwanese skater, and I remember there was this other like documentary piece that it was like a skate series called Epically Latered, and it like showed his family life, and like his mom was in it too, and I was like, whoa, like he reminds me of, like that reminds me of my mom. And it was just kind of like this familiarity and like seeing an Asian skater who was just so good. Like it was like he was an amazing skater, but he happened to be Asian, and like he skated for this company at the time where a panda was their logo. So like all my friends were like, oh my god, pandas are Asian. And it was just kind of that, you know, in a weird way, it was like representation, like, oh, seeing someone who looked like you in this space that really inspires you. And so I just kind of felt permission and wanted to kind of like, you know, in a way, like this movie is saying thank you to a lot of my heroes, you know, like the Where the Wild Things Are influences. Like, I never thought Spike would see this movie, but if he never did, it would be like, hey, like, thank you for, you know, shaping my childhood and in a way, like, making me the person I am today. Same with Jerry, and same with, like, all the little nods to those, like, people in my life.
Well, it's interesting to think of Superbad, right? All these kids, this is such a diverse group of kids because it's the Bay Area, that's literally what it's like. And yet, the kids are watching Superbad, circa 2008. These characters like Fahad and Soup and Chris together are like basically a Superbad, but they would never in this period get to see themselves in a movie like Superbad, and yet they're watching it, which is one thing I really love about your ensemble. These kids are so great, so funny, but it's also, you know, representationally, it's significant to have even a slice of 2008 exist like this. And I wonder, as we wrap up with both of you, if you can just weigh in on what it means, especially you, Joan, after such a long career and after fighting for so long in so many different arenas, to get to find projects that are meaningful in this way, to find roles that are multidimensional in this way. What does it mean for you to be part of a story like this?
It means a great deal. Honestly, you know, when we first talked and I read the script, I knew it was a great script. and he is someone of a very, he's confident and with a sensitive heart, you know, with a lot of feelings, true feelings for the project, and we had a great time doing it. Like Sean said I think one Q&A, you know, he was creating this summer camp kind of a feeling on the set, so all the kids were having a good time. So some of the lunch hours, they were having skits and performances and games, and it was just, we had a great time. We worked hard too, but we had a great time making it. Honestly, I never dreamed that I would actually get attention like this, like what I'm getting now, from playing this this character. I love the character. I know that she's nuanced, she's authentic and different from like Asians being some exotic element, you know, and she's very lived in. I knew that. I loved playing her, but just the attention that we've been getting, and you know, you totally deserve it. And I'm still surprised. It means a lot to me. It means a lot to me, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I echo that. I don't know how I could follow that up other than, yeah, you know, I think we really kind of made this movie in a vacuum. You know, we made it with our friends, and in a way we just, you know, I had never, obviously it's my first feature film that I wrote and directed. Carlos, who's one of my producers, had never produced a movie before. Valerie had never produced a movie before. Josh has produced many movies, but those are a team of 4 producers. But I think there was this sort of element that I wanted to protect, which was like, I think the naivete of this team will actually make this movie better. Like, we don't know the correct way to do things necessarily, but we know what feels right to us and the spirit of this movie. And hopefully, I mean, Hanrei, our production designer, is in here, and every time there was like a choice that I was like, oh, should we do that? Like, that seems risky, and I don't know, there's no precedence for that choice. She would look at me and be like, do you want to take a risk, or do you want to play it safe? And I'd be like, And I think that was kind of the ethos, you know, I think we really just made the movie we wanted to make, and in a way that felt really personal and small and intimate, and hoped that people would see it. You know, when we got to Sundance, I was sort of like, wow, we did it. It was like a dream. And then the fact that, you know, people have seen it, and like the movie is getting the attention that it has gotten, is really just like kind of what Joan says, very unexpected. Obviously I'm happy, but it was sort of just like, I feel like I'm always waiting for the other shoe to drop, but it's very special, and I, you know, definitely don't take it for granted.
It's such a beautiful film. Thank you both for being here tonight. Thank you.